Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. Hey guys, I'm Rand Younger, and this is another episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. And with me tonight, as always, I have a lovely panel of guest critics. We have Mr. Alan Imperial. Welcome back, Alan. Your second time. Welcome back.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And we have back for more, we've got Eric Godfrey and Dobby.
Passed out here.
He's a little tuckered out, but he's one of my favorite furry critics, so I'm happy he's here.
Oh, glad to be here.
Yes, yes. So real quick, guys, before we get into the nitty-gritty, how was your Oscar telecast? Did you see it? Did you enjoy what you saw, Eric?
I did, and I feel like for the first time, like I can talk, like even random people who I don't know at work that don't really watch it, everybody won't stop talking about Gosling's performance of "I'm Just Ken."
Yes, absolutely. That was awesome. Great
So no,
callback to Marilyn Monroe.
yeah, I think that's going to be one of the all-time great Oscar like ceremony moments. Is that performance?
Perfect. I was a little stunned to see Emma Stone win Best Actress. I thought Lily Gladstone was going to win that, but
Mhm.
what's better than a good surprising Oscar show? So we got a
Yeah,
lot.
and on the last episode, we actually talked about it, wishing that she would win. So big win.
There you go. Alan, did you enjoy the show?
I was in DC, so unfortunately I couldn't catch it, but I'm very happy that Godzilla minus one won. That's a lot of ones.
And that is on my shame list right now. I have not had the pleasure, but I will before the year is out for sure at some point. So, gentlemen, we're going to be doing a retro review tonight, and we're going to be discussing the 1999 supernatural horror film Sleepy Hollow, directed by the great Tim Burton. And this is actually a loose adaptation of the short story The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving from 1820. And I consider this is probably maybe top 10 or top 15 favorite Tim Burton films. It's got all his signature trademarks. It's got fantastic performances, great production design. It was actually it won the Oscar that year for best art direction, and deservedly so. You also have a beautiful score by Maestro Danny Elfman, and you've got Johnny Depp before he became Jack Sparrow, so he was kind of like a normal human being character in this, which I really respected, and what I really miss, actually, like really miss for the past 20 years. But we'll get into that in a minute. You've got a really beautiful Christina Ricci, who's kind of a emotionless love interest here, but the supporting cast, Miranda Richardson, Michael Gambon, Casper Van Dien, and Jeffrey Jones. Wonderful supporting cast here. And then there's a much more after that. But yeah, this movie, like, it's 25 years old, but I rewatched it last night, and it definitely holds up. It's a fun movie. It's violent, it's ridiculous, and it's just gorgeous to look at. So, Alan, what were your thoughts on this 1999 gem?
I forgot how scary it was. I had like real jump scare moments that were definitely earned in the film and weren't just there to scare you, but like were part of the plot. And it's just, oh man, really horrific and definitely earns its rated R.
Right. I think this might have been the first or one of the few Tim Burton films that were rated R, if I'm not mistaken. Because
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
I think it is, yeah, because
I think you're right. Yeah.
a lot of his previous stuff is PG or PG-13. So, but this one is really gruesome, and it is so deliciously fun. I love the violence in this, and it's like so over the top too. It's got that kind of same vein as like Sweeney Todd, and same color saturation too. It's very like washed out and gray,
Mhm.
and it really fits the mood of the film perfectly. So yeah, there's just a lot of beautiful things going on with this movie. Um, Eric, what were your thoughts on this movie?
I've been a big fan of this one. I remember seeing this in theaters back when it first came out, because that was when I was going very much through the Tim Burton era. Everybody was, and also the fact that this was peak Tim Burton Johnny Depp. So he was still the weirdo, but he hadn't done the Jack Sparrow over the top one. He was just that fun weird guy.
Right.
And and I actually had the realization it's been a long time since I've actually seen it as a whole.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of fun revisiting this one. And you're right about the violence. I had forgotten just how much limbs and heads and chopping in half. But I always still remember, and I remembered it then. I remember how much I love just screaming Christopher Walken as the headless horseman
Yes.
with his razor teeth, just yelling and shouting whenever you get to see him, and just
Yeah.
how much fun he is.
He had like zero dialogue. It was just all yelling and
Mhm.
grunting.
Yeah,
And
just walking around.
yeah, I think this was his second Burton film after Batman Returns, actually. Which
Yeah.
is
And
interesting.
one thing I also want to note about the thing I loved about it, you're right about it, had that very desaturated, that very dark look that is very, very common now. But what I appreciate is that once everything's all done at Sleepy Hollow, where it's once we get to New York, it's all, hey, colors back in the world. It's like Burton letting you know, like, yeah, that was Sleepy Hollow, was this
Right.
dark, evil place cursed by a headless horseman, and now here we are, turn of the century New York, color and leaves and trees and
I think
snow.
the only scenes of color and like, kind of beautiful, like flowery settings were in the dream sequences of
Mhm.
Johnny Depp as a child.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And also that was actually Lisa Marie as his mother in those flashback sequences. She was actually in Mars Attacks. She was actually partners with Tim Burton throughout the 90s. And he used her. She was basically like his muse. And he
Mhm.
used her in a few things. I think he used her in Ed Wood, definitely Mars Attacks as the female Martian who tries to assassinate Jack Nicholson's president. Um, and just beautifully weird. I love those flashback sequences and just very dreamlike, very Edward Scissorhands in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
no, this takes the dark gothic fairy tale, and it works so well with Burton's strength, everybody's strength, even if blonde Christina Ricci is still weird to me.
is it because of the hair or the other reasons?
Yeah, I'm just not. It's like the eyebrows, everything. It's just like I'm not used to Christina Ricci blonde, like blonde.
Fair enough. Yeah, I wonder if any I was reading about it. I didn't really see if any other actresses were considered for the role. So I guess she was in Tim Burton's mind all along. It's quite possible.
Was this the first time you worked with her again? After I was trying to think of.
Um,
No way, was this?
I think this is the
Yeah, I
first.
should. I meant to look more at the history, but I forgot to.
I would have thought that he would have used Winona Ryder again. I think that would have been an interesting choice.
That's true.
You know,
But no, I like the movie completely holds up. It was great watching it again.
yeah, it definitely holds up. It's a lot of fun. It's gruesome, like we mentioned. And actually, I just found out that Ray Park was the Headless Horseman. Uh,
Yeah, he was in all the fight scenes for the
he,
stunt double.
he had like a special, I think it was like a green screen mask to hide his head. But basically, all those fight scenes were him. It was the same year he did Phantom Menace, and a
Yep.
year before he did X-Men. So that was a really hot time for Ray, and
Mhm.
it's great. Just the movements, it looks so good. Also, Industrial Light and Magic supplied the visual effects, the computer, the CGI here, and yeah, it's a beautiful film. I can't get enough of it. I'm so happy.
Yeah,
It's been a
I
number
think
of
one thing
years.
I think one of the highlights is Johnny Depp's Ichabod Crane,
Mhm.
because one of the things I really like is one of the things I do remember, especially from the old Disney cartoon, is Ichabod is a very awkward, clumsy, oafish person, and there's a weird competence yet incompetence that Johnny Depp keeps sliding between, like this
Mhm.
forensics officer who's terrified of corpses, and this person who is incredibly squeamish but still gets the job done. And that's why I really like him in this, is because he's playing this absurdity, that this constant contradiction of his character.
Right.
And you
Oh,
get some, even,
absolutely.
yeah, and you get like great moments like when he's chopping the tree and the blood just keeps spraying over him, and he's just kind of keeps going at it as it keeps cartoonishly covering.
And it's such a unique style of humor in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very macabre and very fun.
Yeah, I was watching the movie and a bunch of Elfman scores, and then I totally forgot. Oh, it's been 3 hours of like listening to Elfman.
Oh, nice. Story of my life. But before we get into Elfman, which I've got a lot to say, and I'm sure you gentlemen do as well, I just want to go back to the this really strong supporting cast. Now, I mean, I guess if people haven't seen it, it would be spoiler territory. So I guess if people haven't seen it, we will refrain from the spoilers. But Miranda Richardson is delightful here. The late great Michael Gambon is basically the leader of this small town upstate New York. And we also have Casper Van Dien, who plays Christina Ricci's like jealous boyfriend. We've got Jeffrey Jones, who is like he's the town pastor, and he has a sordid criminal history that we don't really have to get into. Jeffrey Jones was awesome in the 80s and 90s, but not so much in the 21st century. But yeah, I digress on that. We also have Christopher Lee, Ian McDiarmid is in it, Michael Gough, who I believe Tim Burton kind of tempted him back into working. He was retired. He played, of course, Alfred in the first 4 Batman movies. And Burton just needed to have him in this movie, and he got him. So that was cool. So yeah, just a really strong supporting cast here, really fun. And of course, Lisa Marie, Ray Park, and of course the great Christopher Walken. So yeah, this movie, like I said, was it won the Oscar that year for best art direction, deservedly so. And it's really a shame because I don't think, aside from Big Fish, I don't think Tim Burton has made a movie of this caliber since. Alan, what do you think? Do you think Burton has made some good ones since then, since Big Fish?
I would say that they're enjoyable,
Mm,
definitely. Um, but I love how you call that Big Fish because that's one of my favorite movies. Just a
Agreed.
really great father-son story. And it's nice when he gets away from trying to be fantastical and instead trying to be grounded in reality. And I think that it stretches his own creativity because he wants to be like weird and quirky, and he isn't in these movies.
mm,
And I think that makes him creatively better.
mhm,
And man, just talking about how it makes all those supernatural things in Sleepy Hollow that much more fantastical because it's so grounded in reality in
mhm.
terms of, oh, I'm Johnny Depp and I'm gonna play this forensic scientist and bring out this weird kid and wear these weird goggles and have all these like chemistry tests
Mm.
going on, and then it takes just a left turn into like severed heads and a weird weirdness, not to get into spoiler territory.
Yeah. Ichabod Crane is not an action hero, which I love. He is like, yes, grounded in reality for sure. He's a man of science, which is great. Sort of like a Sherlock Holmes in a way, but a little more awkward, a little more nervous, and just more fun to watch. I think Johnny Depp was perfect in this role. And sadly, since Sleepy Hollow, we have not had the best track record for Burton. Even though he
I
is
was
my
gonna say because after this he hit the brick wall that is his remake of Planet of the Apes.
oh yeah, and that movie had Mark Wahlberg as the quintessential action hero. That movie also looked fantastic. It had great creature effects, great set design, and of course Elfman's score. But the movie itself was just awful, and
And that ending. Ugh.
yeah, I
Oh,
remember.
with Abraham
Ape
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Yeah, I think I was very close. I should have walked out on this movie. I should have just left the theater, but I stayed to the bitter end. 'Cause,
Mhm.
I paid for it. But yeah, Planet of the Apes was awful. The next year he did Big Fish, which he redeemed himself for that. However, the following year, 2 years later, he did Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which was a little strange. I think that was the first instance where he used Depp in kind of a fantasy role. and that was just not very good at all. Corpse Bride was decent, but that's just because we had been wanting sort of a spiritual follow-up to Nightmare Before Christmas. And then we got Sweeney Todd rather, where he sort of redeemed himself again. So his career is kind of like an up and down roller coaster. And since
I think we're all just kind of waiting for that big one again. Like he's had ones that are okay. He's had
Right.
ones that aren't. He's just been. He hasn't like reached the heights of
right.
like like you said, Sleepy Hollow, like of his classic work. And I think everybody's kind of waiting for him to kind of come back and just do something that's just wows everybody again, like he used to be able to do.
10 years ago, actually, 2014, he did Big Eyes, which was
Mhm.
that was a glimpse
Yeah,
back.
Big Eyes was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but since then, he before that he did Alice in Wonderland, and Dark Shadows is one of the worst movies ever made, in my opinion. You know, he did Frankenweenie, which was, a nice callback to his original work, working
Mhm.
for Disney back in the 80s. But then, he did stuff like Dumbo and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which I didn't particularly love. And
Which
next
is sad because I haven't seen the movie, but the book was really good. And I remember when I was like, "Oh, Tim Burton's doing," it, I'm like, "That's a good choice for
yeah.
this." It's basically Tim Burton's X-Men. This could is what it
Mhm.
could have been, and but I did not hear good things about the
No,
end of the end
it,
results of the
it
movie.
was it was pretty forgettable, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And then he did Dumbo, which was, I mean, it looked good and had a very good score, but I think that's like most of his movies. So, and then this year we have Beetlejuice, which I'm very nervous about. I'm actually not nervous. I'm like 99% sure it's gonna stink. Um, I hope I'm wrong. Please, please, prove
Yeah,
me wrong.
maybe this is it. Maybe this is the Burton
I
moment we've been waiting for.
I really hope it
Here's to
is.
hoping they have a good sandworm in that movie.
Yeah.
I know, but I just hope they kind of use like the same special effects company that they did back in 1988, because those sandworms looked ridiculously silly, and I hope we get that similar that I hope we have a nice callback to that style this year. We'll see. I mean, what makes me nervous is because I was not impressed with Michael Keaton's return as Batman. I was expecting so much more, so I'm expecting so much less with Beetlejuice. So I don't know what's going to happen, and I do hope it's a good movie, obviously. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed. So, gentlemen, I wanted to just talk a little bit about my personal favorite film composer, Mr. Daniel Robert Elfman, who started off in the punk rock band Oingo Boingo in the 70s and 80s. And in 1985, he did his first film score with Tim Burton's first feature film, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, in 1985. And since then, he's created some of the most beautiful music that moviegoers have had the privilege to listen to. And, he just, over the decades, he's time and time again has proven himself as one of the greatest living composers. So, Alan, are you an aficionado of Mr. Elfman's work?
Uh, I didn't realize I was an aficionado until I started doing research for this. Because he's basically my childhood. You have movies like Dick Tracy, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Weird Science, Batman, Darkman, and it's like, oh wow, this is like the guy that like gave me freaking nightmares growing up. Because it's like, oh, I'm having a nightmare of like a weird truck driver, and I just hear his score and like a truck horn going off at the same time. It's like, oh, thanks, Danny. And I never knew what he looked like until like recently, and it's like, oh, of course he would look like this weird guy, because just like the emotions he could elicit using strings or non-traditional instruments or horns to be bombastic is just like old school filmmaking where you're not creating a score because you're just creating a score and you want to make a sound. You're looking at the pictures on screen and saying, oh, what does this make me feel as a composer, and how do I get that into other people's emotional heart?
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful that he does that.
Telling you, some of his greatest cues, especially from the late 80s into the 90s. And it's really a shame because for Batman and Edward Scissorhands, he wasn't even nominated for an Academy Award, which is, I think, a crime
Yeah.
because those are two of his greatest scores.
That Batman, like it's the thing of there's a reason why like you have John Williams' Superman and Danny Elfman's Batman are some of the most iconic. Like nothing has ever come close to touching how like definitive of a character those theme songs are. Like you hear them, you know Superman, you know Batman based on those theme songs alone. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like even like because I think what helped it was even the animated series adapted
Hmm.
Elfman's theme song for its main theme, keeping that thing like, yes, this is Batman's theme song.
And that
Yeah,
was
he rearranged it for
Yep.
the cartoon for
that was
the anime series.
and that was 1992, so the same year as Batman Returns.
Mhm.
So that was really the year of Batman, I'd say.
Mhm.
And they definitely adapted that theme into the main title, which was fantastic. And honestly, every time I watch Batman Returns, whether it be at home or in a theater, I get chills when I hear the music in the opening title, where you're in the sewer, and then the Batman Returns logo pops up, and then just Elfman's Batman theme in full force. And you can't beat that.
Well, and I feel like if we're talking about Elfman, it's like I think he's also one of those directors that falls in the same camp of how you associate him so much with a certain director too. Like the fact that really, like, while Elfman has a huge breadth of work outside of him, most of his most iconic stuff is with Tim Burton in the same way as, say, John Williams with like Spielberg.
Right.
And so it's the fact that you have this associated between the director and the composer that's so I think you really can't imagine Burton without Elfman and kind of vice versa.
But there is something though. Tim Burton has used other composers, uh,
Mhm.
for various projects. I think the first one that he didn't use Elfman for was Ed Wood. I think he used Howard Shore for that.
I think
Um,
you're in.
but yeah, they're basically inseparable. Uh,
Mhm.
and actually, it reminds me of Bernard Herrmann and Alfred Hitchcock, and their chemistry and their work over the decades. And actually, Bernard Herrmann is an influence on Elfman. He's said it in interviews, and it definitely shows. And it's funny too because he adapted Bernard Herrmann's Psycho score in 1998 for the atrocious Anne Heche Vince Vaughn movie,
Oh, for the remake.
the remake.
Oh my gosh.
But that was just basically a love letter to Herman. And
Which actually that brings up one of the things I was not aware. Like even though I'm looking, he was nominated for, I was not aware he did the score for like speaking of Gus Van Sant for
mm,
Good Will Hunting, and
yeah,
that is
Yeah,
a
that's right.
beautiful film score.
yeah, that is a beautiful score, especially the finale. It's
Mhm.
got a very interesting instrumentation, and it just sounds very heavenly and like
Mhm.
ethereal. That and actually that year that was his first nomination. He had two nominations that year at the Oscars, Good Will Hunting and Men in Black. Like the polar opposites in movie styles. But unfortunately,
You want to talk about iconic theme song, Men in Black. That is
he go on.
iconic.
Actually, the main title is fantastic. However, I am in love with the finale, where
Mhm.
basically the camera pans out of New York City, out of the United States into the
Mhm.
Earth, and then into space, and it's just so perfect. Elfman, he combines, he had really great instrumentation there with beautiful choir, and yeah, again, he didn't win that year. He was nominated twice and he lost. He lost to actually James Horner for Titanic, which
No,
a good score, but I don't think. I mean, I don't know. Very different scores. It's kind of hard to compare. But
Yeah, absolutely. I just can't believe he wasn't nominated for Edward Scissorhands because when I think
Mhm.
of like beautiful, ethereal,
yes,
this is how you're gonna end the movie on like beauty, like
like
just that snowfall. It's like that. I
uh,
will always pair that with the voices, and it's just
yes,
I can't believe he wasn't nominated for that.
no,
That's
I
a
don't.
crime.
Not even a nomination. Like if I were on that voting committee, I would have totally thrown his name in the hat. And it's really sad because Edward Scissorhands is probably his greatest score. I tell people that my favorite of his is Batman Returns because it combines the Christmas beauty of Edward Scissorhands with the triumphant heroicism of Batman. So you combine both of those musical worlds into one gorgeous score. That's Batman Returns.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you know,
And to talk about Batman just a little bit, he had to invent superhero music. He
Mm.
didn't want to sound like Superman. And besides Superman, we didn't have like a Cape Crusader. And
Mm.
he basically like gave the blueprint of, oh, this is how you're gonna score a superhero movie from now on. And
Mhm.
just to like pull it out of his hat, out of his brain is just phenomenal because there's so many cues that you get
Yeah.
from how many other Batman video games like that came
Yeah.
out this year or last year, I should say, with uh the Suicide Squad or Kill the Suicide Squad, excuse me.
Yeah, well, I
You
was
know,
gonna
they're
say, like,
still
I'm a
using
very
that
yeah,
iconic da 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 da.
I
like
know they
even I'm a big fan of you talk about the Batman video games. The Arkham series has a great score to it, but you can tell that is even though it's an original thing, it is still heavily inspired by the Elfman theme. It's doing its own thing, but you can always hear that Elfman influence anytime somebody does a good Batman score. Like yeah, like the Arkham City has an amazing theme song, and it's like yeah, there's Elfman's influence in there.
right. And you know what? I want to go back a little bit to the animated series, which was interesting because Shirley Walker, she was a great composer in her own right. She was, I believe, the conductor on the first Batman score, and then Elfman, I guess, referred her to Paul Dini and Bruce Timm to compose original music for the Batman animated series, the run of that. So basically, they used Elfman's theme, and she did the score. And she did the full score for A Mask of the Phantasm, which is an amazing score. The birth of Batman, the finale there, the main title. And that's that's my top five favorite Batman movies for sure.
Oh,
And
Mask of the Phantasm was amazing.
like that's how you write film music. That's how you tell Batman's origin story. That's the
Yep.
way to do it. So I just want to mention real quick that I actually had the privilege of meeting Mr. Elfman twice. Um, first time was back in 2010, around the time he had done Alice in Wonderland, and he had an exhibit. Well, Tim Burton had an exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art, and I met Danny at the exhibit. I was shaking. I'm still shaking thinking about this, but he autographed my Batman DVD. He was very cool. Got a photo with him. And then fast forward like over a decade at Tribeca Film Festival, I got to interview him and on the red carpet for Next Exit. It's a film that I believe his daughter was involved with. So he was there because he did the score, and that's still the greatest moment of my life is that those 5 minutes chatting with Mr. Elfman. So yeah, he is he's still going strong, and I think he's got some more great scores in him, and I can't wait to hear it. Uh, Beetlejuice should have if not it won't be a great movie, but it'll have a great score. That's my prediction right now. And I just want to mention that 2002's Spider-Man score was the score that made Danny Elfman my absolute favorite film composer. So yeah, guys, we have a couple minutes left, and I just want to go around. Any plugs, anything, any projects you're working on, Mr. Imperial?
Uh, no projects I'm working on. Well, actually, yes. If you're gonna be at PAX, I don't know when this is gonna be aired, but if you're gonna be at PAX East,
Mhm.
check out Charismatic Cosplay 101 in the Arachnid Room on Thursday 6 p.m. because Rufio Cosplay and Pinoy Cosplay, which is me on Instagram, are going to be helping you to level up your charisma stats.
And the best Captain Hook cosplayer in the world. My
Good form, sir. Good form.
yes, yes. Bangarang. All right. All right, that's very cool. PAX East, looking forward to that. Mr. Godfrey, how about you, sir? Anything going on?
No, no cosplay. No,
All right,
maybe replaying the Batman Arkham series now that I've
do it. Love it, love it. Anything
Yeah, I
going
need a palate cleanser for Kill the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I still have yet to try that one. I have not
Oh,
had a chance to
don't
yet.
try that game. It's insults
You
to
know,
gamers.
I get a weird. I want to know. I don't. Not looking forward to it, but I still want to try it.
Do the 2 hour. I recommend then set a timer for 90 minutes, play it on Steam for 90 minutes, and then return it.
That might be what ends up happening. I mean, it can't be any worse than the Marvel Avengers game, but who
It is
knows?
worse. I played both. It is worse.
Oh no.
Because at least with Marvel Avengers, it's like the characters are differentiable. Like, oh, I'm using
Uh,
Black Widow, so I have like combat that's close quarters. Oh, I have the Hulk, so I'm gonna smash. I'm using Kamala Khan, so I have like a little like medium range or stretchiness, and it
fair,
feels very
fair.
samey between the 4 different characters, except for movement. So if you're into parkour and you're into level movement,
Hmm.
there's no differentiation between the characters if you're about dealing damage.
Now,
Fair, fair.
now I'm not much of a gamer, but was the Avengers game made by the same people who did the Spider-Man 1 and 2?
So, no,
Okay.
No,
no,
Square
no.
Enix made made the made Avengers, and I can't
Yeah,
remember
specifically
which.
Crystal Dynamics
Thank you, Kristen. Yeah,
Gotcha.
and it's just
and Insomniac Games made the Spider Mans.
I
Gotcha.
was thinking all the way back to like the PS2 games.
Oh,
Yeah.
I had those. I had the first one when it coincided with the Tobey Maguire movie. That
That's
wasn't a
exactly what I was thinking, bro.
that was a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, they perfected a web slinging in that, and that is actually inspired the new Spider-Mans in the PS5, PS4s.
Yep.
Nice. Perfect. Perfect.
I could talk about that game forever.
Same.
That's another episode, gentlemen. So guys, I just want to thank you so much for tonight. This was a great chat. I could talk Elfman forever. Same with Burton, but I think we covered a lot of ground tonight. And for those who have not seen 1999 Sleepy Hollow, please do yourself a favor and check it out. It's just a fun movie, especially if you're a Johnny Depp completist. And this was one of his last movies where he actually played himself to an extent. And it's kind of sad because I don't know if we're ever going to get that from him again. We just got these really weird cartoonish characters who are just kind of dopey and like I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the Jack Sparrow movies. And but yeah, I want more of this depth. Yeah, this is the depth we need, but maybe we won't have that anymore. So just go back to 1999, 25 years ago and check this one out.
You
Uh
want the depth that pushes children into danger and not him.
yeah, I just
True.
I miss him. I want more of it. But you never know. Well, we might get that. Anyway, and as for me, if you want to check out new episodes of Under the Radar, you can check them out on SiriusXM through Slam Radio every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on Slam Radio. And that is on SiriusXM channel 145. Also, feel free to check out the video portion of this podcast on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and that is every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And as always, feel free to check out the Under the Radar YouTube channel, subscribe, and share the love. So Eric, Dobby, Alan, thank you so much, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. And this has been Under the Radar. I'm Randy Younger, your host. Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Under the Radar is brought to you by Magnitude Jewelry. Add a 2 to match your attitude. Patent pending, interchange genuine gemstone and crystal EMF protection jewelry. For more information, please visit magnitudejewelry.com/gemgirl or call 718-268-6634.
Hey guys, Randy Younger here at the 2022 Tribeca Festival, here at the premiere of Next Exit, and I'm about to talk to some of the talent, including a certain Mr. Daniel Robert Elfman, otherwise known as Danny Elfman, who composed the film's themes and some of the music. Here we go. So what attracted you to this role?
Molly Elfman and her vision. She approached me to play the lead character, Rose. I was really intimidated to do it because of the material, and when we meet Rose, she's in a really complicated place in her life.
Oh,
Somebody exciting.
Someone's excited.
I love it. Yeah.
Love it.
But yeah, so initially I was really nervous to play the character, but Molly, her vision had me sold, and just her as a human being. She's just one of the most collaborative, kind, chilled people.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the film yet. I'm going to see it tonight.
Cool.
And I'm really interested because it's a very dark topic of death. So going into it, were you a little bit apprehensive, or did you welcome the challenge?
Well, I think when you see the film, you'll be pleasantly surprised that it goes in a different direction. There are other themes to be explored. For me, the film is about, yes, death, but also rebirth, and how we cycle through that on our time and on this planet.
Yeah.
There are some really cool metaphors given the last few years we've all had with COVID.
Right.
COVID is not explored in this movie, but there's a theme that maybe people can relate to from their experience.
Gotcha. And we all need that right now, for sure.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me, what was it like working on this film?
Unique. It was during the beginning of COVID. I drove across country by myself to meet up with the crew, to pod with everybody.
That's dedication.
Yes, it is. And I'm so lucky to have been able to be part of this, and I had the best time. It was very unique.
Awesome. What do you hope audiences take away from the film?
A new perspective.
Nice to meet you. We actually met at the Museum of Modern Art a number of years ago for the Tim Burton exhibit.
Oh, right.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
So what attracted you to this project?
My daughter's the writer-director.
That's enough, right?
Yeah, it's a very proud moment for me.
And how did you approach the film musically? I'm curious.
I mean, I just she wanted some kind of quirky themes, some music that played a couple of scenes, because I couldn't score the whole film because I was in the middle of another thing at that time. And so I did, and I gave her, I said, use these if you like, or don't use them if you don't like. And she's like, no, I like them. So I said, okay, well, my gift.
And what was it like working with the composer? Ariel, is it?
I mean, she took what I did and then went off and did her own thing. We didn't really interface. I just wrote some stuff, and then I said, you can use it if you like, or don't use it if you don't like. And, I'm just trying to be a helpful papa here.
Of course. Whenever you provide a theme, it's always a great help to the movie, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you for all your decades of great work. You are a true artist, and I respect you. You are my favorite composer, I'll be honest.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Also, a side note, I remember the Nissan ads you composed in 1996.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that. I mean, you got me there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were fantastic. They were a wonderful mix of like Edward Scissorhands and even a little flubber. So.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Randy Younger, Under the Radar. How are you?
Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
You too.
Traffic in the background is perfectly
lovely,
New York.
Right? There we are.
Yeah.
So congratulations on the film. I have not seen it yet. I'm going to see it tonight.
Okay, good.
Very
Good.
excited. It looks awesome from what I've seen so far, from what I've heard from everybody on this carpet. How did the project come about?
It came about, I was writing it over about 10 years, and then when COVID hit, it just became so relevant to me that one thing changes and our entire world has an effect, and the ripple effect that goes out. And so I didn't want to make a COVID film, but it just felt so relevant and timely, and I wanted to talk about the effect that it can have on people. And I also wanted to find a way to give some hope.
Okay. And we all need that right now, for sure.
And ghosts. We all need a little hope and a little ghost.
And a little music from your dad doesn't help.
I loved it. Yeah, he was no, it doesn't hurt at all.
Right.
It was really wonderful. He's talented, that guy.
Oh my God. What was it like growing up in that house?
I didn't have anything to compare it by, so honestly, it felt very normal to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you pretty much heard like the beginnings of certain themes. Were you there when he composed The Simpsons?
I mean, I was probably outside playing in the dirt, eating it, but I did hear it around me at all times, and I am aware of it. But and I love being on a scoring stage. It's one of my favorite places to be.
Nice. What was the most magical moment working with your dad?
He just is very intuitive to what a film needs. I think there's ideas of what you think it should have, and then there's the reality, and he's very good at honing in and finding that.
For sure. I love it. All right. I look forward to seeing the film tonight. Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you so much.
And guys, if you want to see previous episodes of Unger the Radar, just visit the YouTube channel, Unger the Radar. That's Unger with a G. Please subscribe and share. You can also check out new episodes of Unger the Radar on Manhattan Neighborhood Network on the Lifestyle Channel every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you can also check out more coverage of the Tribeca Festival this year only on the YouTube channel.
I was a fading vert skater. My income was getting cut in half every month. And so I started doing whatever I could.
Around that time, in the halls of Activision, there was an idea to do a skateboarding game.
I heard you always been a gamer to some extent.
Yeah, well, I've played video games since their inception. Activision called me and said, we are working on a game. We'd like you to come see what we're doing. As soon as I played it and I felt just some of the controls, I knew that was the game.
The video game obviously turned into something much bigger than I think anyone expected.
To think that this may actually affect the evolution of skateboarding, which ultimately it did.
It was nuts what that game did, not just for skateboarding as a whole, but for us as individuals.
Hey guys, I'm Randy Unger, and this is Unger the Radar, where we talk all things film. And right now I have with me filmmaker Ludwig Gurr of the new documentary, Pretending I'm Superman, the Tony Hawk video game story. Ludwig, hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. So I saw the film fairly recently, and it was very well done. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, how did the film originally come about?
Well, it came about because, back in the day, I used to have a YouTube channel known as Ice Biz Forever, and on there I would upload a bunch of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater videos. And, well, long story short, I did an amateur documentary about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which Ralph D'Amato, who's the producer of the film, saw, and he was also a producer of the first 8 Tony Hawk games. Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to take out my glasses. It looks absolutely horrible. Anyway, to continue the story, he worked on the first 8 Tony Hawk games. He reached out. We kind of became friends. He came over to Sweden one summer, which is where I lived, and we sort of hung out and stuff like that. And then once he always had this idea of doing this Tony Hawk documentary, and I always wanted to make like a professional documentary about Tony Hawk games and not just, some YouTube documentary for 30 minutes. And at that time, I also really started to get into filmmaking. And so when I went over to Southern California in the summer of 2016, I met up with Ralph again. He actually introduced me to Tony Hawk and allowed me to kind of pitch this project for him, and that was awesome. So, and Tony agreed to be, he agreed to be in the project on spot pretty much. And, a lot of that was obviously because of Ralph, who was involved in it, because he'd worked with Ralph for so long. So his professionalism really brought a lot to the project, I'd say.
Cool, very cool. And I'm curious, though, what is your fascination with skateboarding in general, and of course, the legendary Tony Hawk?
Well, I love skateboarding, man. Skateboarding is my life, pretty much. I mean, I was never a really good skateboarder or anything. I can do basic tricks, but I've always been so fascinated by it, to be honest. And I'm just completely obsessed with skateboarding videos, skateboarding news, everything skateboarding, really. And, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like a lot of other kids, was what introduced me to skateboarding in the first place. And it changed my life. And I think it's, one of the greatest art forms out there. And as a sport, too, it's just the coolest thing that has ever existed.
Cool. Yeah, personally, I've never skateboarded. I don't think I have the balance for it. But I am curious, maybe in the future.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
Is it easy to pick up?
I mean, that depends on who you are, man. I mean, some people have a really easy time. Some people do not. I mean, I'd say as long as you're going with low expectations of like, this is really hard to do, you'll probably be better off than someone who's just played a video game and thinks everything is possible, pretty much. You know, yeah.
Cool. So what was it like interviewing all these awesome skaters and video game developers? Was that a difficult process, first booking them and then actually speaking to them?
I mean, Ralph D'Amato, the producer, took care of all the booking, obviously, and, you know, he kept in touch with a lot of skaters. So that was, I don't want to say the easy part, but that was definitely not that hard to kind of get the skaters all together and stuff like that. Some skaters, you know, weren't able to make it, sadly, but almost all of them agreed. And, you know, interviewing them, you know, since this was one of my first major, or it was my first major documentary and still is my only feature length and stuff like that. I mean, it was, you know, I was obviously a bit stressed before going in, but I kind of prepared a lot, and I know a lot about skateboarding, but I did a lot of research about each individual before going into the interview. And I think that really helps. So that's really my advice to any filmmaker who wants to make a documentary is that, you know, do a lot of research on the people you want to interview, because, you know, your dedication and research will show when you're in the interview, so that you don't ask questions that, you know, that you can answer by looking on Wikipedia or something like that, you know. Yeah,
for sure. Did you have a favorite person you interviewed?
I mean, Ronnie Mullen is always favorite. You know, Ronnie Mullen is one of my favorite people in the world, probably the most intelligent guy I know. He's a good friend too. So, I mean, talking to him, whether it's doing an interview with him or hanging out with him, it's just awesome. He's just one of the most interesting people out there. He's so philosophical. And I think he really took skateboarding. You know, he's never seen skateboarding as a sport. And it shows in a way that skateboarding has evolved his thinking, you know, and he's always been a math nerd and stuff like that as well. So, and I have too in ways. So it's very interesting to talk to him for sure.
Sweet. Was there anyone you wanted to include in the documentary that you didn't get a chance to?
I mean, there were a couple scheduling conflicts, but overall, I think we got pretty much everyone that we wanted.
Okay, cool. And I mean, the film is beautifully shot. It looks great. It sounds great. What was the editing process like?
Well, editing, it was actually, you know, I'm actually an editor. That's actually probably my main kind of job in the film industry. It's my full-time job, really. And yeah, I mean, editing, I had a pretty clear vision of what it was going to be from the beginning. But I think after about 5 or 6 versions, we had a really good editor come in and kind of take things over from there. And he was so good, and kind of, you know, and we finished the product off together, and he kind of added the whole dramatic thing to it. And then, you know, in 2019, we actually kind of finished up the ending because, you know, for a long time we had a good film, but the last 10 minutes just didn't hold up. And then we shot some additional interviews and more footage, stuff like that. So the very final 10 minutes I did all by myself. That's probably, I mean, the greatest achievement of my life so far, honestly, editing those 10 minutes, because I think they're really great. I'm really happy with them. I still get goosebumps when I watch it. And, you know, it was, you know, as a lover of skateboarding and a lover of the people that are in the film, I mean, it was a pleasure to interview the film, or I mean, to edit the film, sorry, yeah.
And yeah, I could definitely feel the passion in the film, and it's definitely a love letter to the sport. So that came across really, really well, and it works great. But aside from positive stuff, what are some challenges that you faced during production?
Well, obviously it's kind of, you know, scheduling conflicts, budget and stuff like that. There are always issues you face when making documentaries in particular, because, you know, you never kind of know, unless you are very specified, you never quite know where a documentary is going until you're in the editing room. I think those were the main challenges, and also getting the right people, because, you know, we shot the film over, I think, you know, 3 years. So, you know, first we had these people, and then we edited a documentary, and we kind of realized, we can't really make this documentary without having these other people as well. So we scheduled new interviews, you know, we did, you know, we shot for another summer, and we kept on doing that for a while, you know, and that's always hard, you know. I don't think I've ever heard of a documentary that's been shot for like, you know, 3 weeks, and then they actually got everything they needed. You always need something else, you know, to kind of get that really good dramatic curve for your documentary.
Yeah. All that time and hard work definitely paid off, for sure.
Sure, for sure.
And so, obviously, the documentary, it's not solely based on Tony Hawk and his skating, but it's really more about the history of the video game franchise. So I'm curious, growing up for you, what were other than the Tony Hawk games, what were some of your all-time favorite video games?
Oh man, I have so many actually, and I'm kind of the guy too who anything that I like a lot, I always tell people that's some of my favorites. So saying that, it won't really have an effect on most people that I call something one of my favorite games something. But if I have to name a few, especially growing up, I'd say Crazy Taxi was another one. That's still one of my favorites of all time. Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, such a huge fan of the game. And then actually some store-based game, Resident Evil, all the games, and then also some store-based game by Quantic Dream called Heavy Rain. Especially, that's one of the games that kind of changed my life in a way. I don't know if you ever heard that game. It's a very kind of interactive film, really. So it couldn't be more different.
What was the name? I'm sorry.
Heavy Rain. So,
no.
So the guy who did it actually did a game with Ellen Page as well called Beyond Two Souls, which.
Okay.
So yeah, he's essentially a filmmaker turned, game designer. Yeah.
That's cool. Are there any ambitions to maybe turn a well-known video game into an actual feature-length film for you?
I've actually had ambitions with that. That's funny you say that because I haven't always said it, but I always tell people that, some of the best stories I've ever kind of experienced in any art form is through video games. And and I think a lot of it has to do with that video games are sort of an individual experience, and you can kind of take advantage of the art form just like you can take advantage of, the art of film in ways that you can with books or, or music and stuff like that. So I think, I've always wanted to make kind of a film based on one of my favorite games as well, Eternal Darkness, which is a really good horror game.
Okay.
But I don't think that's ever going to happen. And then obviously that probably won't happen, I should say. And then, there's a bunch of other just really great video games that I play that kind of inspired me to write screenplays in a certain direction and stuff like that. Right now I'm kind of obsessing with a game called Harvester from the 90s, which is a really weird point-and-click game that I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen a film adaptation off of, but at the same time, that's a game that wouldn't lend itself well to film, probably.
Okay. Well, I look forward. I hope to see that from you at some point.
Oh, that's so cool! Yeah, maybe someday. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. I love it. Now, speaking of film, so this documentary has a really great visual style. Like you really pieced it together really well. The tone is perfect, I'd say, for this subject matter. Who are some of your filmmaker influences?
It's a really good question. But I'd say, Stacy, when it comes to a documentary that has kind of similar tone, not similar tone, but a similar style, one of the biggest influences was definitely, the Bones Brigade documentary by Stacy Peralta, Bones Brigade, an autobiography. That's a huge influence on me. Other than that, I think my influence come from all kinds of people. I think my favorite documentary of all time is probably Hoop Dreams by Steve James. But that couldn't be more different than, this documentary. But yeah, when it comes to documentaries that are kind of a history lesson about a specific subject, but that are still appealing to a big crowd, I'd say, I cannot remember his name right now. I am so ashamed of that. But the guy who did, Senna, the documentary about Amy Winehouse, and recently about Diego Maradona, he's just brilliant at his job because he makes these documentaries about these people who only knew, this one, like how to play soccer, or they were really good. They were the greatest race car drivers in the world and stuff like that. And I know nothing about Formula One, but I still love the documentary Senna. So yeah, I think that's kind of what you should be aiming for. Yeah.
So basically that balance of education and entertainment.
Yeah, and also about, I think, getting like a really good kind of drama in the film. I think actually 2 years ago, we really saw that with, I don't know if you've seen this one by my friend Bing Liu, Minding the Gap. Did you see that?
Familiar. I don't think, no.
It was nominated for an Oscar, and one of the guys in that film was actually pretending I'm Superman by the end. But I think that had kind of a perfect balance of, it's about a bunch of skateboarders who feel lost in life, and they're kind of, growing up as young adults, and they don't feel prepared for the world. But, skateboarding, despite being kind of one of the main, not themes, but like I guess, aspects of the documentary, they could have totally replaced that with anything, like, darts or whatever, and it still would have been brilliant, because that's just kind of, they just use skateboarding to explore, fatherhood and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of a scene from the 1995 drama Kids. There were some skating elements there too.
Kids Bel Park, yeah.
Yeah. So just side note on that.
Yeah.
So are there any other subjects you hope to document on in the future?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's a lot. I really don't want to disclose anything right now because, there's kind of this thing with filmmakers that anytime you talk about a product that has been announced in an interview, you'll never end up making it. So I won't mention anything. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot I can say. And it's about pretty much everything, not just skateboarding, but, a bunch of other subjects for sure. Yeah.
Nothing you can tease us with?
I wouldn't want to right now because, then I have to stick to that for the next 10 years. So yeah.
Okay, it's cool. So yeah, obviously we are in a weird time right now, and I'm just curious, as a filmmaker, what direction do you see filmmaking going in the age of COVID?
I think I see people trying to, just like with anything that happens really in the world, trying to make the best out of the current circumstances. And we just saw Shudder do that. They released a horror movie by, I cannot remember his name right now, but he's a British short filmmaker, and he made essentially a horror movie that takes place on a Zoom chat, like we're in right now.
That's cool.
Called Host. And that was, I think that kind of took the world by storm, really. I think it became Shudder, which is a streaming service I never heard of before, became, suddenly came on everyone's radar because of that. But yeah, I think people will just take advantage of, or not take advantage, but they will kind of just use the current circumstances for their own benefit. I think this whole COVID-19 thing mainly affects, obviously the big studio films where like thousands of people work on the same project. I think the kind of indie film market will, sort of remain the same. Obviously productions are a bit postponed for now. And eventually, hopefully at least in a year, everything will be back to normal. We never know. We can never take anything for granted.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just kind of use your circumstances and try to make the best of it, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is going to give filmmakers an opportunity to be very creative in their methods, in terms of equipment and location, and it'll definitely be cheaper for them. But,
yeah, for sure, yeah.
But we'll see. Ludwig, I'm just curious. Have you acted at all? Are you involved in on the other side of the camera at all?
Oh man, no, I'm not. But I'm honored you asked. Can I ask you why? Or
because you have this quality, you kind of remind me like a young Sam Rockwell. That's what I'm seeing right now.
Wow, you're actually not the first guy to think. To say that I remind someone of Sam Rockwell, but man, I'm hugely honored actually. But no, I've never been. I was actually some director actually offered me a role in a film recently. He just saw me in an editing room and thought I looked good for a role. I couldn't take it though, and I still deeply regret that. But yeah, I mean, maybe someday, who knows?
And maybe I'll be there with you. We'll see. You never know.
Oh yeah, because you look like an actor too. So yeah.
Cool. So how can people see Pretending I'm Superman? Where is it playing online? I'm assuming. Where can people see it?
So August 18th, video on demand. It'll be on iTunes, Amazon Prime, DirecTV. All kind. I mean, obviously, you can just go to teachpeacefilm.com, and every streaming service available will be listed for where you can see the film. So yeah, it's you can rent it or buy it. If you buy it on iTunes, you'll get some extra material as well, which is real cool. Some never before seen, or not never before, but some clips that aren't seen the film. So yeah, and if you live in Australia too, it comes out on August 18th on Garage Films, and yeah, some more dates will be announced for other countries.
Sweet. Well, I hope everyone sees it. It's a great film. It's very interesting. I'm not a skateboarding fan at all, really. So it was very enlightening for me personally. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you too. Thanks for enjoying it. Yeah.
So guys, see the film. It's great. Ludwig Gurr, thank you so much for your time today. This was great. And I'm your host, Randy Unger. This has been Unger the Radar, and thanks for watching.